When did European countries last have access to the sea? I just want to say these new like YouTube shorts / TikToks that kind of just focused around one map without any other graphics. It's just people looking at different maps. They're very interesting. They clearly work pretty well for the algorithm because this video got almost 500,000 views. I'm thinking it's just because of how many people probably just sit there on the video itself and look around the map. So obviously there's a lot of countries that never lost access to the sea. So all the countries that are blue with 2024, they still have access to some sort of port, naval port. So obviously a nation like Switzerland has never had access to the sea. They've always been that landlocked mountain nation. Belarus, a nation that's only been around for a little over 30 years, has also never had access. I think this is a meme joke about how Kaliningrad should have gone to Czechia after, you know, like Russia controls that territory. We wanted to give that to another European power. I'm pretty sure this is just a meme. Meanwhile, Slovakia has never had, but here's the big one, Austria and Hungary. Obviously, Austria and Hungary today are two separate countries, but back in the day, they were together. They had access to all this coastline since they controlled a lot of modern-day Croatia, Bosnia. From there, they could obviously make it out through the Mediterranean Sea into the Atlantic Ocean. Serbia had access before they lost Montenegro, North Macedonia all the way back in 168 BC. Apparently, Moldova will have access in 2025, but I thought Moldova did technically have a small coastline. It looks like they're extremely close, but that might not actually be the case. Might kind of depend on a couple things, but wow. I didn't know Luxembourg had a coastline. Oh, small mistake there, but nice job, French mapper. Most wanted lands by each European country. This one seems like there's going to be some pretty obvious ones there, but maybe some less obvious stuff too. So Portugal might possibly want back Galicia, which is like in northern Spain. Obviously, Ireland wants Northern Ireland, and the UK might possibly want all of Ireland. And this is a debatable topic. I don't know necessarily. We need to hold more polls about this. Speaking of polls, Poland wants back their old stuff out here in the east. Remember that Poland's borders have moved slowly more and more west throughout their history, which makes sense that Germany wants their old imperial borders back. Italy might want Corsica, as well as these parts of France. Of course, the Dutch and the Netherlands want to divide up Belgium. Hungary wants this part of Slovakia. Hungary pretty much just wants everything surrounding them after the whole thing. Don't bring that up. The Balkans are literally being the Balkans. This is unsurprising, and people wonder why there's still so much chaos there. Russia's actively trying to get this. Romania doesn't want Moldova. I would beg to differ. Ukraine wants... I don't know what Ukraine wants. Oh, that's right. Finland wants this stuff back. Again, this is up for debate, but yeah... The map makes sense. Nice job, Albania, Geo. Has your country ever controlled 50% or more of a continent? Now, obviously, the UK has done that because they have Oceania or Australia. Depends on what you want to define it as. Actually, now that I think about it, this video might be confusing because it depends on how you define continents. Definitely the Spanish with just over half of South America. I can't even read that for Portugal. Rome has had 50% of Europe, and then the Nono-Germans have had 70% of Europe. Portugal also with 50% just under. Who technically has more land? That's a really good question. Apparently, modern-day Brazil covers roughly half of South America, or just under 48%, which that looks visually about right. However, I think that also means that the Spanish side, or basically all other countries, almost all of the countries, were under 50% as well. Funny enough, for them to have broken 50%, the Portuguese Empire or the Spanish Empire probably needed this stuff up here. That might have set them over the edge, because it was basically Portugal, Brazil, and then Spain with literally everything else except for these tiny 3 countries where no one knows what the hell goes on there. Russian Empire once controlled 52% of Europe. Soviet in the end of World War II controlled 59% of Europe. I mean, especially if you consider their stranglehold they had over the Iron Curtain, East Germany, that would make sense. I don't even know if that's what they're considering here, though. Oh yeah, what about Napoleonic France? A couple outliers here, but nice job, History World 54. All the countries Russia supplies with guns.
That bought guns from Russia in the last 10 years.
In the last 10 years, that's very important. If we just did the last 3 years, that would be pretty fascinating. But it's also going to see how some of this stuff aged like milk.
Yes,
so all Asian countries.
And the
Syria, definitely.
Africa, where most of the countries get
the
guns
countries
from
that Russia wants
Europe
into with Africa.
Guns from the US, which is why there are only a few countries that
Serbia,
hold
Hungary,
guns from Russia.
Belarus.
Moving to America, we add a few countries, but it is definitely not the biggest market for Russia.
Brazil, Mexico.
We do not add any country at all, and this makes
not surprising there. I feel like that mostly checks out. Indonesia, India as well, Saudi Arabia. Man, I want to see this map as of the last like 2-3 years though, because I have a feeling a lot of things have changed. How does North Korea not buy guns from Russia? That's Russia's #1 simp. Okay, good point. Nice, globe addict David. Germany's biggest nightmare.
Almost half of its land. So this is Germany's largest state, called Bavaria. Now, back in the 1870s, Bavaria was much more reluctant to join the German Empire because Bavarians are culturally and religiously more similar to Catholic Austrians than to Germans.
They're very different people.
Even
for
today,
sure. South Germans versus the North Germans, they're very different. I got to see for myself that.
1 in 3 Bavarians want an independent Bavaria. However, However, Germany isn't allowing this, because it would not only remove a huge chunk of its GDP and population, but the states of Baden-Württemberg and these 3 other states are also majority Catholic, so they might also try to do the same.
And the unification of Germany is quite an interesting one. I definitely recommend people go and look into that, like 1860s. There's a reason why that land was, for the most part, pretty divided throughout most of its history. As a German, I have never heard such a BS about my country. What's interesting is, isn't a bigger divide, just generally speaking, between West Germany and East Germany because of the whole Cold War era? I wonder if this idea gets passed around occasionally, but I don't think the Bavarians are actually serious. What if Europe never existed?
If Europe never existed? Firstly, if Europe was just an ocean, there would be no Spain.
It actually is so, I can't even begin to think about how this would even be possible. There'd be no Roman Empire, there'd be no ancient Greece. I guess there'd still be an ancient Persia, though.
To discover the
See, like, this guy didn't go far enough back. We're talking about Spain. Like, you gotta go way further back than that.
No Spain to discover the Americas, meaning there would be no USA, no age of colonization, no industrial revolution, and even no world wars. This means
we have to go back to like
40,000
years ago, like with human migration, humans getting out of Africa, and then they wouldn't be able to turn up into Europe. They'd have to go all towards Asia. It might be even more complicated. You might even have to go back further than just the humans alone, just animals, species, nature, that like the way that the globe would function. This is getting too complicated.
This means many advancements would never happen.
Many advancements would never happen.
A lot more similar to the 11 and 1200s.
I mean, when are we talking about that Europe disappeared? Is there a certain time period that Thanos just snapped it away?
However, let's assume Europe disappears in today's world. Now, USA would lose almost all of its allies, and Russia would lose almost all its enemies, meaning this time USA and Russia might try to gain allies in Africa.
That'd be very interesting for the situation of Africa. Africa would become overnight insanely important because it's now in the center of the globe. There'd be a massive war for that. China
Africa becoming
also is over there, would also maybe become an economic powerhouse.
Really wealthy.
Sorry, China would help Africa become an economic powerhouse. South America also probably becomes a lot more important. Not that it's not important right now, but we don't really talk about it that much.
No age of colonization.
There's just less land in this
industrial
situation.
Revolution.
Yeah, I feel like the best way to take this scenario is to just pretend like it disappears today. USA crying about this. Americans making fun of Europe for disappearing, then realizing they don't exist anymore. No world wars, Japan. Are you sure about that? These questions are like so impossible to answer. It's hard to even begin. How did Europeans
react to the American Civil War in
I think this subject is so fascinating. Apparently, the French and the British kind of just watched from the sidelines, like maybe taking notes.
1860. The British were extremely displeased by the war since their supply of southern cotton was cut off by the Union blockade.
Yeah,
However,
so a lot
they
of
never
people
joined
believe
the conflict since they needed the Union's wheat supply. The French,
for that reason, a lot of people thought that maybe the British would help the South.
were also pissed about the cotton and even invaded Mexico alongside Austria to take advantage of a distracted USA. But
yes, because I forget to mention that because I always talk about the French invasion of Mexico. But a huge factor why they even considered doing that is because the massive neighbor to the north, Daddy USA, was completely fighting itself.
never joined the war since there was little to gain. Prussia and Russia were both pro-Union and wanted to keep the USA friendly since they would be a useful counterweight to Britain, though they never sent any aid. Finally, the Ottomans were very happy with the war since they could sell way more cotton with the Confederacy being blockaded and make way more money, and so they were very pro-Union.
Yeah, I feel like the only chance a European country helped the South, the only country that even possibly would have done it is the British, but of course the British weren't fans of the core message behind the South and what they were doing. British outlawed slavery 30 years before the whole Civil War. Subtitle said the Union's weed supply. That completely changes the whole story here. Nice job, History Now. Countries which have rejected
EU membership.
While
many countries are eager to become EU members.
Yes, and maybe some Caucasus Mountain regions. It's just Norway, the UK, and the Swiss, right?
They rejected membership because of fishing. You see, fish is a significant sector in the Norwegian
economy. But aren't they a participating
partner?
Aren't they like kind of a partner with the EU?
If Norway joined, it would have to allow other countries to fish in its waters. Iceland is not a member for the same fish reason, as well as its distance from mainland Europe. Lastly, Switzerland isn't a member because Swiss people don't like joining any alliances.
Yes. I mean, technically the UK could be included in countries that have rejected the EU. They just were formerly a part of it. Rule 1, never ask Iceland to share its fish. It's funny comparing and contrasting the countries that rejected the EU versus want into the EU. Pretty sure Ukraine would want into the EU too, though. The US just got bigger. This is going to be one of those videos about
that the United States
sea
increased
territory,
its territory by around 10% in the past year. You see,
this is
every
absolutely
coastal country
sea
has its
territory.
exclusive economic zone, extending 200 nautical miles offshore. But in some situations, a UN policy known as the Extended Continental Shelf can apply, allowing the borders to be extended beyond this 200 nautical miles. This is how the USA received the rights of extension over 6 new
Oh,
areas.
with all, because they have
100,000 square miles were added into the Atlantic Ocean along the east coast.
nice.
Another area of 12,000 square miles was gained into the Pacific Ocean, and 2 smaller ones into the Gulf of Mexico.
Ooh,
But the
so
most
it's mainly in the
important
Atlantic.
ones are the ones that bother Russia the most. This area in the Bering Sea and this huge piece of water in the Arctic Ocean, measuring around 200,000
I can see why that would
square
bother
miles.
Russia the most.
As the Arctic Ocean is going to become more and more important due to climate change, this is a real game changer for the USA.
That's what everyone's looking for. Will there be new trade routes that open up through the North Pole? And if the U.S. controls these lands, that'd be a big deal. I like how most territorial changes now just happen out at sea, pretty much, when throughout most of history that was not the case. That was like never the case, actually. Canada's superpower.
Is the secret power of Canada. Initially, Ontario holds the spot for being richest and most populous. Then Quebec is important for its huge French population, making it really diverse. Followed up by Alberta, which is the primary producer of country's oil and gas, while Nunavut is vital for Canada's claims and presence in the Arctic.
So which one is it? Which one is their superpower? All of them? Canada's secret plan.
Territory is the secret power of...
Which one is it? This territory, I guess all of these are the secret power of Canada? Okay. I was wondering, yeah, like what about Vancouver, where they get some love at? I think Canada's actual superpower is the fact that they're so frozen up there that they can't move and nobody notices them. Does that make sense? I'm not saying they're not important, but they don't make anyone mad. That's what's key. Nice job, InfoHub. Which American
state has the longest coastline?
That's very easy.
I bet that the answer will surprise you.
It's not surprising.
By far Alaska. In fact, its coastline is so long that it's longer than the coastline
Holy
of all
crap.
other US states
I actually
combined.
did not know that.
That's crazy how huge this piece of land actually is.
That is insane. But what about Hawaii? How much coastline does Hawaii have? Hawaii's not even in the top 5. Apparently, second place nation is Louisiana, then Florida, Maine, and California. How is Louisiana so high? Oh, this is not ranked in the right order. Thanks, David, again. European countries that oofed the most people on each continent. This is... What a crazy YouTube short. Is this accurate, though? The Spanish Empire in both the American continents, or are they just combining? Oh, see, that's where this gets really complicated. Because in South America, couldn't it be Portugal and Brazil? I mean, I'm sure they oofed a lot of people over the years. Belgium and Africa, like, they were pretty bad, but did they oof the most? It's not France or the UK even. I don't think anyone can disagree. Obviously, the UK was really the only European power in Australia. I mean, there were moments where some other people got there, but not for a very long time. No, Germany and Europe, I guess I get. I mean, the Soviets moved a lot of Germans. Doesn't that also count? Oh, no, the Germans, they wiped out way more Russians during World War II. Okay, fair. And then the UK, maybe with the Qing dynasty and the whole Opium Wars, possibly. Never ask what the Belgians did in the Congo. Oh, that's right. The British in South Asia, specifically India, but yeah, British Raj. Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, the British probably oofed the most Asians out of all the European countries. Kind of forgot about that. This is such a debatable topic. I'm still focusing on, like, did the Spanish really take out the most in North America? I mean, you can't include the US because that is not a European country. Of course, the French and the British were here too, even after the 13 colonies got their independence. Obviously, the British started with modern-day Canada. But you know what? Just considering the whole, like, Aztec invasion that the Spanish did, I mean, there were a lot of indigenous Americans that were living in modern-day Mexico at that time. I guess Spain probably did oof the most. Quite the thought-provoking YouTube short there. Nice job. Please go subscribe to all the channels. Big thanks to my patrons this month. I tried to kidnap Drew again, but he put me in his basement. Help. Drew's Argentinian Grandpa. I can't sleep without Drew's voice. Nord, Tiger, Archaeology, aPhatNarwhal, Carmel, Sarsath, Pavlik, DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood, Fredrik Tibblin, JohnDenver, KansasWasMentioned, KingBearHaze, LuxembourgLover, sebby. If you hear this,